Would you open a Bible to Luke 22, the end of the chapter, Luke 22, closing paragraph, one of the closing paragraphs of that chapter. This is page 830 in our Pew Bibles, if that's helpful for you. A relatively short time after the events that took place on Olive's Brow, this is what we're told beginning in Luke 22, verse 63. Now the men who were holding Jesus in custody were mocking him as they beat him. They also blindfolded him and kept asking him, "Prophesy, who is it that struck you?" And they said many other things against him, blaspheming him. When day came, the assembly of the elders of the people gathered together, both chief priests and scribes, and they led him away to their council. And they said, "If you are the Christ, tell us." But he said to them, "If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man shall be seated at the right hand of the power of God." So they all said, "Are you the Son of God then?" And he said to them, "You say that I am." And then they said, "What further testimony do we need? We have heard it ourselves from his own lips." First of all, I read that entire context so that we can see the treatment of the subject of blasphemy that's happening there. That while they're accusing him of blaspheming, what are they doing to him? They're blaspheming him. The irony is not lost on us. But the second thing is that I bring this up to ask us to think about what he answers them at the end of verse 70. How is it that Jesus can say to them, "You say that I am the Son of God," when they have clearly denied that very truth? Every now and then, I catch my kids telling me a lie. It's not often, okay? I want to give credit to my boys because they're in the room. It's not often, but it does happen, and I guess it does for all of us parents. We catch our kids in a lie. And I hate that. I hate that as a parent. It makes me sad. And I've been reminding them lately that the worst thing they can do when they've done something wrong is to lie and make it worse. That's just not okay. The better thing you can do is, if you've done something wrong, tell the truth about it, admit your fault, and change it. That's the much better thing to do. But again, every now and then, I do catch them in it. Now, those of you that are parents, how do you catch a kid in a lie? Well, sometimes the evidence is just too hard to ignore, right? It's, you told me you did it, you didn't do it, that's a lie, plain and simple. But one of the other ways that it happens occasionally in our house is that I can tell when my boys are trying just a little too hard to get me to believe something in particular. And it's just that extra effort that they're frantically trying to get me to believe the lie that makes me see that it is a lie. And again, those of you who are parents, you've likely experienced the same thing. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's just the truth could be presented in such a calm and collected kind of way where it could stand for itself and it would be believed because it turns out to be true. But it's the frantic, like, "Please believe me, let me tell you more and more and more and more and more to validate what I'm saying here." That just makes me suspicious. And sometimes it's been that very thing that helps me to see through, to realize that's what they're doing. So now, with that in mind, in Jesus' conversation with the council, how is it that he can say to them who are denying that he is the Son of God, "You say that I am the Son of God"? I think there are a handful of things that he could have meant right there. He may have been looking at a specific member of the council when he said it, because there is one member on that council that we will find out later does believe in him. That would be Joseph from Arimathea. Joseph from Arimathea does believe in Jesus, and so he may have been looking at the council and seeing Joseph eye to eye and saying, "You say that I am the Son of God. That may be one of the options. It may also be that Jesus is just latching on to their exact words and throwing them back in their faces. Because if you look again at verse 67 here in Luke chapter 22, in verse 67 they say, if you are the Christ. Well, there's the words right there. You are the Christ. And he may just be latching on to that and throwing it right back at him and saying, you spoke the words, not me. That may be what he's doing. But I think that one other very plausible meaning behind his words in verse 70 is that he realizes they are all too frantic to get rid of him. And their scurrying to destroy him shows that they are frantically trying to believe what they know to be a lie. They are frantically trying to get everyone and themselves, to believe the devil's lie that he cannot be the Son of God. In spite of the signs that were there as clear indicators that they should have believed him, all the signs that he did to show them who he was, in spite of the way that he lived his life in perfect accordance with the Scriptures, which they can see, in spite of the prophecies that he fulfilled and the testimony to his heavenly identity, they want so badly to believe that he can't be the Messiah, that he cannot be truly convicting them as sinners. And so they are in a panicked frenzy to get rid of him. Why do children sometimes feel such a frantic need to force their story on the minds of their parents? Why do these people feel such a panicked need to force their story into reality? The scribes, the chief priests, and the Sanhedrin council could all know who Jesus really was, but they refused to believe it. And so they accepted the devil's lie, which set a series of actions in motion to attempt to make that lie stand up as truth. And when you look at how hard they pushed through this night, aren't they trying just a little too hard? And doesn't it say to anybody with the observational skills of a parent of small children, you're trying to push something here that isn't true and you know it? I wonder if sometimes we do something similar, that we do some sort of spiritual and mental gymnastics similar to theirs when we come to worship, and particularly when we come to communion. I wonder if sometimes, rather than facing our sins, confessing them to God and to others, and repenting of them, we instead work hard on creating a lie and standing it up as truth. That we frantically scramble to make a facade of perfection look as though it's the real picture of ourselves. Instead of accepting truth that says we need to change, we push the lie that says we're already perfect. I wonder if instead of admitting to Jesus, you are the Son of God and I know that I've sinned against you, we just continue to keep frantically trying to believe a lie that says, no, I'm good, I'm perfect, and I hope everybody else around here sees me that way. We push the look good no matter what kind of mentality that much harder, and we reveal that, like a kid trying to get a parent to believe something, we're trying to get God to believe us to be better than we know ourselves to be. Rather than admitting what we've done and confessing it and repenting of it, we just try to cover it up. And the harder we try to cover it up, the more we say, whether we mean to or not, that he really is the Son of God, and we're just resisting him. So may today's communion be a chance for us to do some real repenting, if that's what we need to do. To just stop working so hard at lying to ourselves and to God, and stop trying to force a lie to be the truth. May communion today remind us to just admit who Jesus is, and how that ought to lead us to living with as much perfect holiness as we can muster. Not so that we look good, but so that we truly are good in his sight. The question is the same to you as it was to them. Do you believe that he's the Son of God? And do you live like you believe that? Let's make sure that today we are aligned to his will as we ought to be, not just trying to frantically believe a lie.